Grading Spencer Rattler with the great Greg Cosell, Ross Tucker podcast. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Ross Tucker football podcast. And on the right here is Greg Cosell, legendary football analyst, high football IQ. I believe Greg is working with the 33rd team right now. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there, but Greg knows his stuff, no doubt about it. And they were talking about the rookie quarterbacks and how they all performed, or young quarterbacks, not rookies, but the young quarterbacks and how they performed in the preseason. We've talked a lot about Spencer Rattler with the Saints and our coverage, and we've listened to some other Saints media members' coverage of Spencer Rattler, but this is a good, unbiased look at exactly how Rattler performed and what basically an NFL executive, and Cosell's not a literal NFL executive, but I'm sure plenty of executives do pick his brain and think along the same line of thinking. So kind of gives you an idea of just how good or bad Rattler played in the preseason outside of New Orleans. So excited for this. We're just going to watch the Rattler part, but if you do want to watch the entire video, the link is always in the description. They go over Drake May, Will Levis, the Malik Willis, Bryce Young. I'm surprised I didn't talk about Caleb Williams, but all right, let's go ahead and get into it.
I don't think I've asked you yet this preseason about Spencer Rattler. In that same game, I guess, against the Titans, it looked like he was doing some positive things. What have you seen from Spencer this preseason?
So we've been really high on Rattler. I mean, obviously, his first game was great against the Cardinals. Second game was kind of a mixed bag, closer to bad. And then his third game against the Titans was spectacular. And I think he's the second best quarterback, no doubt about it. I think he is the future quarterback, all that stuff. He's got a long way to go to reach that potential, but I think we saw the physical tools. We saw everything that we thought he had in his toolbox, the arm, the athleticism. He showcased that. The hard part is translating to the NFL. The hard part is the speed of the game, how good defenses are, how quick things are, which, of course, we saw with a few of his mistakes. But overall, I thought Rattler was really, really good, and he proved that he is closer to the 7th quarterback taken, which would put him in line with like Bo Nix and those players. He's closer to that than a quarterback taken in the 5th round. Now, he has both, right? He was the 7th quarterback taken, 6 went in the 1st round, and he was taken in the 5th. But I think if all things were different, and if you could go back, I think Rattler would be taken in the 2nd or 3rd round, not the 5th.
Rattler is one of the most intriguing guys I thought coming out of the draft. To be quite frank, I was surprised that he was a 5th-round pick. And again, I don't know Spencer Rattler, so I don't know if there were other extenuating issues beyond just his tape, which his tape at South Carolina was a little inconsistent and erratic at times.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, South Carolina had a horrible offensive line. It's hard to be consistent. It's hard to look technically fantastic when you're running for your life and having to make all the plays like Rattler. Shedeur Sanders kind of, I'm filming this after Colorado and North Dakota State. But, by the way, we had North Dakota State 10.5, or 10, close 10.5. But if you're following me on Twitter, you'll see that. So make sure you're following me to get those updates. But, yeah, I mean, Rattler coming out of college, I think you could look at the tape and say he's got a ton of assets. He's relatively raw. And a little bit unpolished as far as like the film.
He played behind a fairly poor O-line, by the way.
Me and Cosell, man.
But he's a very gifted thrower of the football, yes. Ross. I mean, people may remember he was the number 1 quarterback coming out of high school in Arizona, heavily recruited, went to Oklahoma, then South Carolina. I'm going to mention a play that is totally lost because it was an incompletion. It was his 2nd dropback of the game. But he showed really strong NFL traits on this play.
It might be the play. Are they going to show it? It might be the play that Jacobson dropped the pass. It might be that one.
His awareness not to make a poor decision, progression reading ability, footwork and balance to reset his platform, stepping to his throw.
Progression is a huge thing because, a lot of the times you'll see young quarterbacks who rely on 1-read progression, 2-read progressions at best. There was quite a few times in the preseason where Rattler, you could tell, went through his entire progression and sometimes found the fourth read and made the play. So it also shows he's not panicking. It also shows that the game isn't too fast for him. But I want to go back to what Cosell said about, wasn't too long ago, Rattler was the number 1 quarterback prospect. At a certain point, that does not matter. Correct. But you cannot ignore the physical tools that you must have to be the number one prospect in anything. Just like a pitcher. If you're the number one pitcher prospect because you throw 100 miles an hour or whatever, and you kind of have a shaky college career, but then you start doing well in the minors, you can say, like, this guy does have the ability to throw 100 miles an hour. He does have the ability that got him noticed in the first place. He lost it for a little bit there, or it didn't reach his full potential, but the ability is still there. When you are young, when you are a rookie, when you're in your first couple of years, you still have that to fall back on. Now, obviously, there's other factors like Jamarcus Russell. His biggest problem was his willingness to prepare and all that. And, Russell's physical ability, he couldn't fall back on. So at a certain point, the XY axis does kind of equal out to where you can't always have that physical ability to rely on. But right now, it is important to distinguish that Rattler is different when it comes to what he was early in his career, especially when you consider who the Saints have drafted previously. You look at the Ian Books, you look at even the Jake Hainers, you look at the Chase Daniels, you look at, I had someone say, what about Teddy Bridgewater? Teddy Bridgewater is a good example too. Teddy Two Gloves. Teddy Bridgewater is much closer to Jake Haener in physical ability than he is to Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler is a very exciting prospect when it comes to his physical traits. So something the Saints haven't had almost ever, maybe ever. I'm sure it was way before I was walking around, but I'm sure Archie physically at the time was pretty, Archie, it's hard to believe now, but Archie was a scrambler. He was kind of a mobile quarterback, but I can't really testify to that. But Rattler probably is the most exciting quarterback the Saints have ever had from a physical standpoint, not counting Breeze. Breeze was a special breed, so he instills a lot of hope, if nothing else. He instills a lot of excitement, I think, of what could be there in the future.
Compact delivery with limited range of motion, precise ball location. He showed so much on this one play that a backup tight end dropped.
It was
and
Jacobson.
Then he hit St. Brown.
I knew it was Jacobson. It was when he was coming across the middle. Rattler, beautiful play. It was unreal. We talked about it multiple times, I think, during the recap of the game. But hit Jacobson right in the numbers. Really tough throw. Really tough. I think he had to go up in the pocket to escape a little pressure. Made the read. Jacobson was probably the last read because he's coming across the field. Found him, hit him right in the chest. Jacobson drops it. He ends up getting cut. Dog eat dog world.
For a 21-yard touchdown on a slot fade. Beautiful throw. Pace, touch, precise ball location. This kid can throw a football. Now, again, I'm not there every day, so I don't know all the other elements. But he can throw a football. He's an easy thrower. He's got a big arm. I'm very curious. He's obviously not the starter in New Orleans, but I'm curious to see how that progresses.
There you go.
Ooh, I like that. Almost like some foreshadowing there, Greg. Depends on how well Derek Carr plays, that's for sure. What about, did you get...
So what we can take from this and what Greg is saying is that from a arm talent standpoint, he checks the boxes. From a maturity, and I mean maturity as far as like football IQ, which factors into progression and the speed of the game and all that. From that level, he checks all the boxes. So Rattler did what he had to do in those preseason games to show me, certainly, but also someone like Greg Cosell, who probably that's the first time he has seen or even thought about Spencer Rattler in the NFL. We've covered Rattler since draft day, right? Since the rookie minicamp, since training camp, all of that. I would assume Cosell has watched 20 snaps, probably less, of Rattler. And so for him to come to that kind of realization or come to that idea that physically he's there, progression-wise he's there, all of that is a great thing. And it's something that, again, it's not me saying this. It's not a guy who covers the Saints. It's not a beat writer for the Saints saying it. It's a very respected football analyst whose job is to break down young players. So I love what I'm hearing. The Rattler hype train is hot and heavy right now. The steam engine is churning, and it probably should be. It probably should be because of what he did in that preseason, like we talked about. Again, guys, I'm not saying that he's in competition to take Carr's spot. He's not in competition for potentially, starting this year or splitting time or any of the other things. But I am saying that for the first time in damn near 20 years, we have a legit path. We have a legitimate bridge. We have a legitimate plan for the future of the quarterback position of the New Orleans Saints, which is something that, if nothing else, it should make you sleep easy at night, just knowing like we don't have to go out there and look for the Kirk Cousins of the world, or the Derek Carr of the world, or the Baker Mayfield of the world. We don't have to overpay a veteran quarterback once Carr's time is done in New Orleans. We don't have to, look for a cheap alternative like Andy Dalton or, Jameis Winston or players like that. We don't have to rely on a D- veteran like Trevor Siemian to just kind of bail us out and keep us around 500. We don't have to do that if this works out. Right now, we can turn to a homegrown guy in Spencer Rattler. Not only does it do that, but it gives the front office, specifically the financial groups, a bit of an idea of where we should be allocating money and when. When should contracts fall off? When should new contracts start? And it's probably right now going to be the window of whenever they assume Spencer Rattler is going to take over as the quarterback. You don't want, I'm not splitting the atom here, but you don't want old contracts to bleed over into like a new era or a new chapter of the Saints. I mean, how many times have we seen teams like the San Francisco 49ers or the Seattle Seahawks or even the Rams, whenever they're winning with a cheap rookie quarterback contract? It's because they can allocate money and contracts other places, and then once they pay that quarterback, which we saw with Russell Wilson, which we saw with even Jared Goff, what we saw with or what we will see with Brock Purdy, once that happens, what we've seen with Jalen Hurts, once that happens, it becomes much more difficult. So to have an idea financially of what you want to do with those contracts in your roster building, it makes it easier when you've got that rookie quarterback, when you have that position taken care of, because just like Atlanta knows, when you're dumping $175 million to a 35-year-old off of an Achilles injury, roster building, salary cap stuff can get a little tight. So I'm excited right now. Will it impact us this year? No, but it will impact the planning. It will impact how we manage rosters and contracts. So that's exciting. But love Ross Tucker does a great job with the NFL, and Greg Cosell obviously love his work as well. So if you want to see more from Greg, I'm pretty sure he's at the 33rd team. So go check that out. But thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I know it was quick, his analysis, but what do you think about what Greg said about Rattler? And how would you grade Rattler's preseason? I would grade Rattler's preseason probably an A. I would say an A as far as like what he had to do. Then you throw into the fact that he's a 5th rounder. I think he came out of the preseason looking better than some 1st rounders. I think. So, good stuff for Rattler, good stuff for the Saints. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.